Ben, who's the decision maker between you and your subconscious mind in your inner household?
Well, it's gotten much better. I'd say it's me, the higher me. And I think the key has been getting distance and listening. Listening has been a big part of my process, just observing and not reacting to the thoughts and the feelings that seem to be coming from my subconscious mind and giving it space before making decisions. So I would say mostly me now, but it wasn't the case before.
Hmm. Tell me what changed that it went from you being in charge rather than your subconscious mind.
Creating space has been a big part of it. Creating space and not reacting. There's this concept that I learned, which is holding the tension. Our bandwidth to deal with tension in interactions within ourselves is, we've been trained to have a very low bandwidth for that. And if we can hold just a little bit of tension with ourselves when we have a thought or we have a reaction, emotional reaction towards something, and rather than reacting to it right away, giving it space, holding space for it, that has been the key for me.
How many Bens are there?
I can't even, I lost track. Too many. Too many bends inside of this subconscious mind.
Are they all in your subconscious mind, or are there Bens in other parts of you?
Ben is all subconscious in my perspective. Everything that is Ben. There's only one true me, and it's the awareness that is me.
And he doesn't have a name?
No, I prefer not to give him a name.
Yeah. So we'll call him the nameless. I'm very curious about how, because I can't help myself. I, I counsel people on these subjects. I want to know what and how. First of all, what made you become really aware of how much the other Ben or the subconscious Ben, has authority, and how, beside the pause and I love the idea of holding the tension. What else do you do? What else helps? And when and what happened that you became aware of the subconscious Ben?
I was someone who was highly anxious before. And so my nervous system would get, I would just go into this fight or flight state. I would just feel tightness, tension in my body. My heart rate would increase. I just wouldn't feel comfortable in my body. So a big part of my practice has been calming the nervous system and doing things like alternate nostril breathing. Different types of breath exercises have helped me a lot to help ease the nervous system, because we do have these physical bodies, and when they get activated, it becomes very hard to get that distance. If my body is in fight or flight, it's very difficult to get the distance from the mind, to hold that tension. So calming, developing ways to calm the nervous system has been really key.
Mhm. It's really fascinating as I observe people and observe myself. I realize that these subconscious characters have become so strong in us that it is almost impossible in that moment, seemingly, that we can distinguish between the aware self, the nameless, as you called it, and that character. And that character, the more history you have, the denser it becomes. That's why it's so difficult to show up this aware and this calm when we're dealing with our family, because that's been the longest history usually for most of us with our family members. And what has been and what has been helpful for me is to recognize that character. So I literally name her and I say, oh, the character is showing up again. And that character has different aspects to her, in my case, depending on the setting. So there's a character that shows up professionally.
Mm-hmm.
There's a character that shows up in social setting or familial setting, um, or when I meet somebody new, and I so know her. I know that character of mine. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, there you go. She's at work again. I can almost predict what she's going to say, how she's going to be, and what's going to happen. And this is what's going to happen, because what she's going to say is different every time. I'm going to feel really not authentic when I let her show up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're happy because they've just seen the practiced Mitra character, or they're very unhappy if it's, a negative character showing up. And I am always unhappy because I know it was the character, not the true, authentic me. And
Mm-hmm.
tired, by the way, exhausted because I'm answering all the questions that you may have. Because the character is playing. So imagine that we're in a play and we're trying to say the lines and be the role, be the character. That's very energy consuming, as opposed to if you said, like right now, we're just chatting. I don't have any particular plan. I don't want to say anything that is organized in my mind. I'm just being in the moment. That's the easiest and least energy consuming person to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
So,
just wanted to say that about the character.
yeah, I just want to echo back. Absolutely. It's so much energy, right? Because if you're playing not your true self, then you have to constantly be anticipating what is going to happen. How are you going to react? Um, the mind is more active. It's so energy consuming. And yet sometimes we can't help but to let that aspect of ourselves, which is not even our true selves, it's a subconscious projection of ourselves, to take over. So what do you do when you notice that's happening? How do you deal with it?
I think the first step is noticing that that's happening
Yeah.
because we have confused ourselves with that
Mm,
character.
yeah, this is
We have
true.
so
Yeah.
confused. If you say that, it says, no, no, no. Anytime we say always, anytime we say never, anytime I say I'm just like that,
Mm,
I know what's going to happen. I mean, there are just vocabulary around the character. Uh, when people say I'm just like that, as if like I'm a fridge and I cannot be an oven. It's like, no, I'm an ever evolving being.
mm,
So I can tell you for, I don't know, 60 years, I may have been certain way, but right on this breath, I can be different. I can do exactly what you said. Pause is the first secret tool. Without the pause, there is no space between me and the character, and I'm truly confusing myself with the character.
mhm. Yep.
So just knowing, one, knowing the character exists, I mean, that identification pre pause is very important. So if you like the tools, first is identifying that there are many characters. And you've heard me say this probably many, many times. It's almost like this long table that I'm sitting at the head of the table. If I'm aware, the aware me is sitting at the head of the table. And they are all characters, variety of mitras are sitting around the table. The question always is the person sitting at the head of the table the aware me or one of the characters in that moment? That's the
Mhm.
question. And that visual has helped me so much. As soon as I feel the tension in my body, which is when I'm not authentic, it's the character speaking. I ask the aware me to please take the seat.
Mhm.
Please take the seat. I just need to be very strong word, saved from the character that automatically, without my permission, without my consultation, takes the head of the table seat.
Okay. And what is your attitude towards those selves? I mean, one can take an attitude of being reprimanding, like you guys are bad, you need to stop, or it can be one of compassion and
Okay.
curiosity and
The
understanding.
character wanted to answer that question. I just noticed her. Oh my God.
Good catch.
I got shivers. I was going to say, oh no, I am very loving and I'm very motherly. The fact is, um, sometimes I'm too enmeshed with them to even have an attitude.
Mm.
And sometimes I really resent them. But when I am aware, and it happens from time to time, when I am aware, I literally hug the character. I hold the character and I tell her, I know one day, and I don't remember when, you helped me by doing this and taking charge. But I no longer need your services, definitely
Mm.
not in this moment.
Mm.
And I kiss her, I hug her, I thank her, and she lovingly leaves and takes the seat furthest away from the head of the table.
Mm.
But it doesn't happen every
Acknowledgement.
time. Yeah,
Acknowledgement, yeah.
yeah,
And on the power of
yeah.
just acknowledging those parts of ourselves, even the parts of ourselves that are hard on ourselves, right?
Yeah,
The inner
yeah,
parent that's like
yes,
does the shitting to ourselves.
yes. And
And
one day she was needed. One day she protected me for survival purposes. Right now, I'm really focusing on thriving, not surviving. She is confusing the situation and the nature of my experience. Right now, as we're talking, I don't need to be in survival mode. I don't need to say anything. I don't need anybody to agree with me. I just need to be authentic and really, really serving more of the truth of the world than making the lies of the world bigger and stronger and denser.
yeah, and the thing is we can't fake it either. And I think this is where it can get confusing is, some people might hear this and be like, well, then I should be kind towards these parts of myself. And they might not feel like being kind towards those parts of themselves. And they're kind of being like, oh, I should love this part of myself. So I'm going to try and love this part of myself. But that's not how I really feel. And I think the key is that it's all okay. It's okay. There is no bad. There is no bad. Even if you're hard on yourself, it's okay. Even if you don't feel love towards those parts of yourself, that you're not compassionate towards them right now, that's okay. It's okay to allow that to be. And maybe to take on the perspective of curiosity. Right now, I notice that um, part of me is taking over, and it caused me to say something to someone that I'm not proud of. And I can't help but to feel angry and guilty about that,
Mhm, mhm.
and angry at that part of myself.
Yeah.
And rather than doing anything about it, just kind of going back to holding space and being curious about it, being curious about the whole, I'm angry. I wonder where this is coming from. And I'm realizing that it's all actually happening for us. All these parts of ourselves that are within us that are doing things that we might not like, or we might not be proud of, are somehow, or at some point in our life, which you alluded to, has served us. It's actually trying to protect us in some way.
Yes.
And when we can get that, then it becomes easier. Like, oh, I get it. I understand. So I do have compassion towards that part of me.
Yes. And and that's okay too. It's all information. Everything is information. So when I do get angry at myself, the question is, how do I feel? Did that serve me or not? I think that's the best educator for us. Did that serve me? I just talked like a very difficult sergeant in army to myself. Um, Let me just check in. Did it feel good? Did it feel good?
Yeah. It goes back again to this whole idea of holding space, doing nothing. You
Hmm.
asked me what have been tools that I've used. Doing nothing has been one of the most powerful tools that I have used. Okay?
Or not
Because
you?
being someone who was so used to taking initiative, to
Mhm.
doing, to trying to fix, to solving, taking on the position of I'm just not going to do anything. If there's any tension, if there's any anxiety around it, I'm going to pause and I'm not going to do anything. And that also has been one of the hardest things for me to do, because the urge to want to do something, to want to solve, to want to figure out, I'm feeling this anxiety in me, or I said something or I did something that I'm not proud of and I want to fix it. I got to do something about it. And to say, nope, we're not going to do anything. Just going to sit here and we're going to breathe. It's been so, it's been one of the hardest things to quote unquote do. Uh, but one of the most rewarding, because invariably, what happens is clarity comes in and understanding comes in.
Mhm.
Compassion organically arrives, and it no longer has a charge. And in the beginning, it's hard to identify it, but if you practice something like this enough, you begin to realize when something has a charge and when it doesn't. And when it has a charge, I'm just going to take a step back and I'm going to create space.
Mhm.
But it's hard to identify when there's a charge or not in the beginning, because we're so used to be acting and reacting with a charge,
Mhm.
with an emotional charge, with an intensity. No, I'm totally I'm coming from my center. I'm totally coming from my center. This is my true, authentic, wise self that is responding right now. This is the right thing to do. I know it. No, there's a ton of charge there.
Yeah, and the more you emphasize, the less I believe you, because when we're emphasizing and we're shouting and or repeating, that means there's a doubt. Like, if you asked me a question and I was really certain about the answer and the answer was truthful, I don't need to prove it. So whenever we're defending or justifying or attacking, these are times to be very aware that maybe we are not in our center, maybe we're not in our true self, because that level of that goes back to feeling. I really trust feelings more than most things that I experience. If it feels right, if it feels comfortable, then I'm there.
But most people don't, not most people, a lot of people don't know what feeling comfortable even is. I was one of those people, right? I was so used to being in discomfort, in unease. That, if you were to ask me what comfortable is, it would be a state that to me right now would be extremely uncomfortable.
Yes. So it depends on your standards of what you call comfort. And the more you experience true comfort, the more you want to experience it. I mean, I remember I used to think like I could live like this. I could really live like this. And
Mm.
when I resign, and I quite often ask my people that I work with to write a resignation letter, literally, like
Oh,
resign from these positions.
wow,
And
wow.
usually these unhealthy positions are the rescuers, the person who wants to, opine all the time. It's like a lot of things I can just listen and say, yeah, I don't need to agree or disagree. I can just hold the space to just listen. Or the rescuer is very huge, especially in those who hold more feminine energy, unhealthy feminine energy.
Mm.
that I
Yeah.
need to be the rescuer. And it comes from memory. I mean, if you've always had to do it in situations, and I have that character very strongly in me. I felt in many, many aspects of my life and many parts of my life that I was the only one. You know, my father passed away. I lost my country. I lost my marriage. I lost the presence of my family members, and or I literally lost my family members. And then I felt like I'm the only one. I'm the only one. So when you believe you're the only one, then you want to take charge and rescue
Yeah.
all the time,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the unhealthy characters that I know at least I had very strongly in me. I pay all the bills. I make all the decisions. I do all the volunteer work. Any work that is hard for anybody else, I'll do it. And of course, the more you do, the better you get at those things. And then that becomes your reason. So if you say, Mitra, why are you doing all these things? I said, like, it will take them so much longer. It's true, but only because I have practiced longer. If I let those people also practice, they will learn too. It's not like I'm the only one. But in that moment, I believe I'm the only one and it feels right. The society encourages
Mm-hmm.
this. People who are benefiting encourage it. And you become, my God, you're so capable. And I say, and I'm so exhausted,
Mm.
capable and exhausted
Mm.
and away from the true me because in that exhaustion, I'll go to survival mode again. The characters
Mm.
show up and it becomes a vicious cycle.
Mm. What I hear you saying is, so for you, it all comes back to whole creating space,
Yes.
creating space. And we're literally, we're rewiring our subconscious when we do that. When we're not reacting,
Yes.
when we're creating space, we're reacting in a new way.
Mhm. We're responding.
We're
We're not reacting.
responding. See,
Yes.
exactly. We're responding. Thanks for that. It is a key difference. We're responding in a new way. And when we're responding in a new way, we're changing our subconscious programming slowly but surely.
Yes.
And it only builds momentum as we continue to do that.
Mm. There's a lot in that word, respond, responsible, ability to respond, meaning the ability is in me, and react, meaning somebody's acting and I'm reacting their act. So it's totally out of my control and command. So there's a lot of information in these two words. Yeah, I don't want to be reacting somebody else's act or my assumption of somebody else's act. I would like to be responsible, able to respond instead of just playing the game that has been played for so long.
Which is a beautiful segue because responsibility in the way that you have framed it, the ability to respond, is key to being able to take ownership of our life, of our subconscious mind, and how we respond to things. And it's so easy for the mind to want to blame this and that. I did it for a long time. I blamed childhood, my upbringing, being bullied as a kid. And what that did was really disempower me.
Yes.
And a big shift came with the understanding of what true responsibility is, which is
Mm.
the ability to respond. We can choose to respond to any situation in our life however we'd like to. That's in our full discretion. We might have experienced something horrific and bad, but how we respond to that horrific and bad thing is
Mhm.
100% our choice.
Absolutely. I would love
And
to talk about this idea, but I think that's an episode on its own. The neutral nature of things. I think that's a perfect way to take responsibility. What if everything was, and in my view is, absolutely neutral. Every meaning we give to it makes it this way or that way. And that way, the ability to respond becomes much easier. I am responsible for interpretation of this, giving meaning to it. I'm really able to decide what to do with this. And I have unlimited choices and potentiality here. The one that I've been doing is the one that I've just practiced more
Mm-hmm.
in absolute confinement of my survival and fear.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of other choices. I have plenty of choices. And you know what? I'm going to try them because this hasn't worked. I've done it for so long. Hasn't served me, hasn't served the other people, hasn't served the relationship we have. What if there is another way and what if I can try it? Just try it. It's just like I always say, full refund available. Do it once. You don't like it, bring it back, go back to your own character and see if that helps you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And I think that there's the understanding that there is no wrong choice at the end of the day.
exactly.
There
Exactly.
is no wrong choice.
Yes.
There's so much weight sometimes we put on the choices we make, on how we react to certain things or respond to certain things. But there is no wrong choice because whatever choice we make, we can, at a minimum, learn and grow from it.
Yes. It's all
And
information.
and we always have the ability to take corrective actions as well.
Yes.
We do our, it's what you've told me before. You do your best and you trust the rest. You do your best. You do your best to make the best decision for something or to respond in what you perceive as the best way for you. And you trust the rest. And if it doesn't unfold in the way that you would have expected, which expectation is a whole other thing.
Another episode.
Yeah. Uh, then it's okay because you still have the opportunity to respond to that in a new
Yeah.
way, new in a different way.
Yes. The whole guilt thing will go away if we really look at our experiences, what we call bad and good, wrong and right, as information. So I talked to you a certain way. It didn't work out. We didn't get to a place that was satisfactory and helpful to both of us. And then I realized that doesn't work. It's a simple information. And the more we look at this that way, the more helpful it becomes because a lot of my energy now goes next time I want to talk to you to the way I talked to you so called badly last time. But if I used it as an information, it's okay, that didn't work. When I shouted, when I was disrespectful, when I made comments that were not really helpful to my well being or yours, that didn't work. So let me try being more present and less this and more that and see if that works. It's just pure try and error. That's what it is. We're just trying and seeing what works. And then guilt makes it so heavy that it doesn't allow me to go to a better and fresher place. So as we're talking, Ben, I'm really noting the topics we need to talk about the neutrality nature of things, how to work with guilt, and expectations. These are three beautiful subjects that we can consider for our next episodes. What say you?
Looking forward to that. That sounds good. Mitra, before we close here, you offer a program that helps people to align with their true selves. And can you share a little bit about that and where they can get more information?
The program is actually available for a whole year, but the actual program is 11 weeks. It's called the Mindful Attentionist Self Coaching. And it's funny coming from a professional coach of 40 years. But I decided that there's no coach that is with us 24/7. So I teach self coaching by really evaluating all these things that we're talking about. What's the story that we're living by? And looking at where we're living as a fear based survivalist in our physical life, in our emotional, mental, and spiritual life. And we really, in a very safe place, in a group setting, evaluate the whole self throughout the year. And then at the end, we create, this time consciously, a version of us that we would like to be. And then we have a lot of time to practice it. So where they can get the information about is going to mitramanesh.com, my name.com, and then looking at mindful attention is self-coaching, which is a click away from the first page.
Until next time, Mitra.
Take good care.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. For a list of the links and other resources referenced in this episode, check out the podcast description. If you're benefiting from our podcast, we'd love if you could help us reach more people by subscribing. Your support means the world to us. From our hearts to yours, we thank you.